Imagine running a marathon where the finish line actually moves away from you by 2 miles for every single mile you run.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that sounds like a nightmare.
Right. I mean, you'd stop, you would immediately realize the game is rigged, you'd step off the track, and you'd probably just go get a smoothie.
You definitely get a smoothie. You wouldn't keep running.
Exactly. You certainly wouldn't keep running until your legs just completely gave out.
Mm.
So my question is, why do we do this exact same thing literally every single day with our careers, our bank accounts, and just our baseline happiness?
Well, it really is the defining paradox of the modern human condition. I mean, we've built this world of just unprecedented abundance, yet the prevailing emotional state for so many people is this deep systemic fatigue.
Yeah. Like a burnout that just won't go away.
Exactly. It's an exhaustion of the spirit. We are constantly chasing success, money, attention, all under this unspoken assumption that once we accumulate enough of these glittering prizes, we'll finally prove that we are, fundamentally enough.
But it never works out that way, does it?
No, it doesn't. And yet, the harder we chase, the emptier we feel.
And that systemic fatigue is exactly what we are unpacking in today's deep dive. We've got a really fascinating set of sources today, a collection of philosophical notes and reflections that focus heavily on personal growth, mindfulness, and this core concept of knowing enough.
Which is such a powerful phrase, knowing enough.
It really is. And our mission today is to explore the profound idea that those who know enough often suffer significantly less. But to get there, we really have to dismantle the entire machine first.
We do. We have to look at the evolutionary biology of why we are seemingly hardwired to perpetually want more.
Right, and we need to examine how modern technology and algorithmic culture have just absolutely hijacked our natural instinct for comparison.
Yeah, the algorithms have a lot to answer for.
Oh, absolutely. And most importantly, we're going to figure out how to navigate all of this without just, throwing our hands up and giving up on our ambitions altogether, because I think that's a big fear for people.
It's a huge fear.
Yeah.
It's a vital navigation, honestly. Because the immediate assumption people make when they hear a word like contentment is that it means giving up.
Right. They hear knowing enough and they immediately think of apathy. Like, oh, I'm just going to sit on the couch forever.
Exactly. But what we're really talking about here is emotional mechanics. We're talking about how you can maintain your drive, your curiosity, and your growth while actively building this fortress around your daily peace of mind.
I love that. Building a fortress around your peace. Okay, so let's start at the beginning, because, we really can't talk about a cure until we thoroughly diagnose the problem.
Right.
And the problem really seems to be our own biology. If you look at human behavior, desire basically has no terminal point. It's endless.
It really is. It's an infinite horizon.
Yeah, you reach one dream, you achieve one massive goal, and almost instantly, like magic, a new one just materializes.
It's not just a cliche that success doesn't buy happiness. It actually seems biologically engineered that success breeds a new, much more expensive form of dissatisfaction.
Wow. Engineered. That's a heavy word.
Well, engineered is the exact right word for it, actually. Yeah. Because when we look at this from an evolutionary psychology perspective, it starts to make a terrifying amount of sense.
Okay, let's unpack this. Break that down for me.
Think about our hunter-gatherer ancestors, right? Let's say a hominid found a really great berry bush.
Okay. A great bush, lots of berries.
Yeah. And if that hominid thought, wow, this is fantastic, I have enough, I'm just going to relax here for the next month, well, that hominid didn't survive.
Because they just sat there.
Right. Winter came, or a predator came, and they were wiped out. The hominids who actually survived, the ones whose genes you and I carry today, were the ones who found that amazing berry bush and immediately thought, okay, but what if there's a better bush over that next hill?
Or what if this bush dies? What if a bear eats it?
Exactly. I need to secure more.
So wait, nature actually wants us to be miserable, just to keep us alive. Because that is a really bleak realization.
I know, it sounds harsh, but nature doesn't care about our happiness. It only cares about our survival and our reproduction. Perpetual dissatisfaction was literally a survival mechanism.
Because it kept us moving.
Yes. It kept us innovating, moving, and preparing for winter. The problem now is what evolutionary biologists call an evolutionary mismatch.
An evolutionary mismatch, meaning we're living in the wrong environment for our brains.
Precisely. We took a brain that evolved for intense scarcity, a brain that completely relies on perpetual dissatisfaction to keep us alive on the savannah, and we dropped it right into an environment of hyperabundance.
So we're constantly looking for the next berry bush, but we're standing in the middle of a fully stocked supermarket.
Exactly. And the specific biological mechanism driving the carrot on the stick is dopamine.
Right. Okay, I feel like dopamine gets thrown around so much in pop science. Like, everyone calls it the reward chemical. But our sources suggest it's actually much sneakier than that.
Oh, it is. Calling dopamine the reward chemical is just a fundamental misunderstanding of neuroscience.
Wait, really? It's not about reward.
No, dopamine is not about pleasure at all. It is about anticipation.
Anticipation.
Yes, it's the hormone of motivation and craving. Some of the most famous studies on this, they involve monitoring the brain activity of monkeys. So researchers train these monkeys to pull a lever when a light comes on, and when they do, they get a drop of sweet juice.
Okay, sounds simple enough.
Right. But what they found is that the massive spike in dopamine doesn't happen when the juice actually hits the monkey's tongue.
It doesn't.
No. The spike happens the exact moment the light comes on.
Wow.
Yeah. It's the anticipation of the reward that drives the behavior, not the reward itself.
So, applied to our lives, the dopamine spike isn't when I finally sit at the closing table and sign the papers for a new house. The spike is when I get the pre-approval from the bank, or when I'm like browsing Zillow listings at midnight, just imagining how great my life will be in that house.
Precisely. The daydreaming is where the dopamine is. And here's the truly insidious part, the part that leads to that exhausted heart the sources talk about. Neuroscientists call it the reward prediction error.
Reward prediction error. Okay, what is that?
Well, if you expect a massive emotional payoff from an achievement, let's say getting a massive promotion at work, your brain pumps you full of dopamine while you chase it. It feels great to chase it.
Right, you're motivated, you're staying late, you're grinding.
Exactly. But when you actually get the promotion, your brain recalibrates. Because the actual lived experience of sitting in a slightly larger office, doing slightly more stressful work, almost never matches that euphoric anticipation you have.
Oh man, yeah, the reality is always a bit of a letdown.
It is. So what does your brain do? It experiences an error. It assumes you just didn't aim high enough. The dopamine levels absolutely plummet, and the only way to get them back up is to set a new, even higher goal.
So it's like downloading a major software update on your smartphone.
I like that.
Yeah, the moment it installs, your brain just fundamentally rewrites its baseline. The new features aren't good enough anymore. They don't bring you active joy. They just become the new zero.
The new normal, yes.
Right, and if you go back to the old version, you'd be miserable. But having the new version doesn't actually make you happy. It just makes you crave the next update.
That is a brilliant way to conceptualize it. Your baseline zero just keeps shifting upward. And when you defer your happiness to the next milestone, like telling yourself, I'll finally be at peace when I hit that specific salary figure. You are conditioning your own reward system to only value the future.
You're constantly living in the future.
Yes, you are literally training yourself to exist in a permanent state of lack.
Yeah.
And living in a constant state of deficit is just emotionally grueling.
I mean, I think everyone listening can relate to that. Think about a time you finally achieved something you desperately wanted. You know, you get the degree, you get the job, and the transition from celebration to anxiety is so incredibly fast.
So fast. It's almost instantaneous.
Yeah. You get the new job, you go out to dinner to celebrate with your friends, and honestly, by dessert, you are already stressing about how you're going to impress your new boss or how you can leverage this into a VP role in 2 years.
It is the defining vulnerability of human nature. And it leads to a very specific, profound kind of exhaustion.
Yeah.
When you are always wanting, your heart just gets tired.
The exhausted heart.
Exactly. Because you expect lasting peace from these external achievements. But you only ever get a temporary spike in dopamine, followed by a swift, sometimes brutal return to baseline. And if you don't understand the mechanics of this, if you don't see the illusion, you're going to assume the problem is just your ambition.
You'll think, oh, I just need more. That wasn't enough.
Right. You think that one wasn't big enough. So you double down on the chasing and the exhaustion just deepens.
Okay, so if my brain is biologically hardwired to constantly want more, and my dopamine system is actively working against my long-term peace, I mean, that's a tough enough battle on its own.
It is.
But we don't live in a vacuum. We live in a society that seems meticulously engineered to exploit this exact biological vulnerability.
Oh, we really do. And this is where we transition from an internal evolutionary drive to an external crushing weight of societal pressure. Modern culture acts as a massive amplifier for our baseline dissatisfaction.
It's like pouring gasoline on the fire.
Exactly. And the primary mechanism it uses to do this is comparison.
Right. But okay, I want to push past the standard cliche here because I feel like we all know social media is a highlight reel.
Sure.
Everyone listening knows that Instagram is fake, that people use filters, that they only post their best moments. We don't need another lecture on how we are comparing our behind the scenes to someone else's red carpet.
Right. We've heard it a million times.
Exactly. We cognitively know this. So my question is, why does it still hurt so much? Why does it still effectively steal our joy if we logically know it's fake?
It's a great question. And the answer is because cognitive knowledge is remarkably weak when pitted against deeply ingrained evolutionary instincts.
Okay, explain that.
Well, the real issue here isn't just that the images are curated. It is the algorithmic density of this social hierarchy that we are exposed to.
Algorithmic density, walk me through that. What does that mean?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, let's go back to our evolutionary roots again. For hundreds of thousands of years, the human brain evolved to track status and hierarchy within a very small tribe.
Right.
We are talking about Dunbar's number. Have you heard of that?
I have, yeah. It's the limit on social relationships, right?
Exactly. It's the cognitive limit to the number of people with whom one can maintain stable social relationships. And that number is roughly 150 people.
Okay, 150 people.
Right. In a village of 150 people, the math of comparison works out really favorably for most individuals. You might be the best hunter. Someone else is the best storyteller. Someone else is the most attractive.
So almost everyone can find their thing.
Yes. Almost everyone can carve out a niche where they feel valued, adequate, and high status.
You can be a big fish because the pond is inherently small.
Exactly. Your brain evolved to assess your status relative to those 150 people, just to ensure you weren't going to be cast out of the tribe. Now, take that exact same status tracking hardware, that primate brain, and expose it to a globalized, algorithmically sorted pool of 8 billion people.
Oh, wow. Yeah, the math completely breaks down.
It shatters.
Yeah.
You are no longer comparing yourself to the best runner in your village. You are logging on and comparing your casual morning jog to an Olympic athlete's training regimen.
Right.
You aren't comparing your salary to your neighbors. You are comparing it to a 22-year-old tech billionaire whose life is being artificially injected into your daily feed just because it generates engagement.
And it's not even just one category. I think that's where the sheer exhaustion really compounds for me. We aren't just looking at one unified hierarchy anymore. We have 50 different subcultures we're comparing ourselves to, all simultaneously.
Absolutely. It's relentless.
You look at LinkedIn, and you immediately feel professionally inadequate. Then you open Instagram and you feel physically inadequate, or you feel like your vacations are pathetic.
Or your house isn't aesthetic enough.
Right. You go on Pinterest and you realize your kitchen renovations are absolute garbage. Your brain is trying to maintain status in dozens of global, highly curated arenas all at once.
And that is the core of the exhaustion. The human brain hasn't evolved any defensive mechanisms against seeing 100 wildly successful, breathtakingly beautiful, incredibly wealthy people in a 10-minute scrolling session on the toilet.
Right. It's unnatural.
It completely overloads the system. The brain interprets all of that data as a massive threat to your social standing. Your nervous system literally reacts as if you were at the absolute bottom of the tribal hierarchy.
And evolutionarily speaking, being at the bottom of the tribe means death.
It means exile and death, yes.
That makes so much sense. It really explains that specific phrasing from the text about measuring happiness by what is missing. It's a guaranteed recipe for misery, because if your denominator is a global pool of algorithmically selected perfection, your fraction is always going to be effectively zero.
Exactly. It forces you into a permanent deficit mindset. You are constantly doing a mathematical equation where the result must be negative.
It's rigged.
It is. If your definition of success, or even just feeling okay, is based on having what others have, it is mathematically impossible to feel happy. There will always, without fail, be someone who is richer, fitter, younger, or seemingly more at peace.
Always.
Always. And if your gaze is permanently fixed on the gap between you and the person artificially placed above you in your feed, you literally lose the cognitive ability to see the solid ground you are actually standing on.
So we are dealing with a biological system that naturally demands more, and it's been hijacked by a technological system that shows us infinity.
That's a great summary, yes.
So what does this all mean? That brings us to the crux of the issue. redefining what it actually means to know enough. Because clearly, the old definition, just acquiring things until you finally feel secure, is it a trap? It doesn't work.
It is the ultimate trap. Knowing enough requires a fundamental paradigm shift. We call it the asset mindset.
The asset mindset.
Yes, it doesn't mean having everything you've ever wanted.
Yeah.
It means stopping the torture of endless comparison. It is the realization that happiness has to begin with an appreciation of what you already possess, rather than letting the biological and algorithmic craving for more dictate your baseline peace.
Okay, I hear that, but I have to push back hard here.
Please do.
Because this is where the philosophy of contentment always seems to crash into the harsh realities of the modern world for me.
Okay, how so?
Well, if I just decide I am perfectly content with my salary, my apartment, and my career trajectory, does knowing enough mean we just settle? Like, if I appreciate what I have, am I just giving up on wanting things to be better? Because if I stop fighting, I'm not going to ask for a raise. I'm not going to upskill. Meanwhile, real-world inflation is pushing 8%. Housing is completely unaffordable. The job market is hyper-competitive.
Oh, yeah.
Doesn't knowing enough functionally make me a victim? If I stop fighting for more, don't I just get crushed by an economic system that relies on constant aggression?
That is the absolute most critical tension in this entire discussion.
Yeah.
And it is where almost everyone misunderstands the concept of contentment.
Yeah.
You are conflating emotional baseline with economic strategy.
Conflating emotional baseline with economic strategy? Okay, unpack that for me. How do I separate them?
But think about it this way. The philosophy of knowing enough is a shift in measurement, not a surrender of standards.
A shift in measurement.
Right. It is about uncoupling your self-worth and your daily peace from your external circumstances. Let's use your salary negotiation example because that's a perfect real-world application.
Let's do it.
Okay, imagine a person operating from a deficit mindset. They walk into a negotiation feeling inadequate. They feel they fundamentally need that 20% raise to prove they are valuable, to finally feel successful, to match their peer group.
So they're going in sweating.
Exactly. If they don't get it, they are emotionally devastated.
Yeah.
Their internal peace is entirely held hostage by the outcome of that meeting.
They are desperate. And frankly, desperation is usually a terrible negotiating tactic anyway. People can smell it on you.
Precisely. Now, look at a person who operates from a framework of knowing enough. They walk into that exact same negotiation fully grounded in the reality that their life is already deeply okay.
Because they have the asset mindset.
Yes, they have a roof over their head, they have relationships they value, they recognize the intrinsic worth of their own labor. They are fundamentally at peace. And from that place of immense emotional security, they can look their boss in the eye and say, the market rate for my skills has increased by 20%, and I require my compensation to match that.
Oh, wow. That's fascinating. So contentment is actually the armor you wear into the battle. It's not the excuse you use to avoid the battle altogether.
That is a beautiful way to put it. Yes, it's armor. You are negotiating fiercely, but you aren't fighting for your emotional survival. You are just fighting for economic fairness or strategic growth.
That makes total sense.
True contentment is an active, powerful choice to stop torturing yourself with what isn't there. It absolutely doesn't mean you wouldn't accept more if it came your way, or that you won't work hard to secure a better future for your family. It just means your emotional baseline is no longer contingent upon the acquisition of that more.
It's the difference between acting out of inspiration versus acting out of desperation. Like, if I have a leaky roof, I don't just sit in my living room getting rained on, trying to meditate on how grateful I am for the water.
Right. You don't just say, I have enough water, thank you.
Exactly. You fix the roof because it needs fixing. But you don't fix the roof because you hate your entire house, loathe your life, and feel incredibly inferior to your neighbor who has a waterproof roof.
Exactly. Knowing enough allows you to live lighter. You are carrying fewer burdens because you aren't carrying the immense crushing weight of constantly proving your worth to the world through your acquisitions.
Which perfectly navigates us through that false dichotomy that trips so many people up. The tension between being content and being ambitious. The sources we're analyzing today make a very distinct separation between being content and being complacent.
Yes, and between ambition and greed, between healthy growth and endless dissatisfaction.
It's such an important distinction.
It is vital to separate these concepts because our culture frequently blends them together just to keep us producing.
So how do you define the difference?
Well, complacency is a state of stagnation.
Yeah.
It's usually fueled by laziness, fear of failure, or just a complete lack of curiosity about the world.
Right.
Contentment, on the other hand, is a state of peace fueled by gratitude and present moment awareness. You can be entirely content with your life as it is at this exact second and still be wildly excited about building something new for tomorrow.
Okay, I want to try out an analogy here and see if it holds up.
Let's hear it.
Let's say you decide to build an addition onto your house. If you are operating from contentment, you build that addition because you genuinely want more space to host your friends, you love architecture, and the process of designing it brings you joy.
Okay, yes. That's intrinsic motivation.
Right. It's an expression of play and curiosity. But if you are operating from a deficit mindset, you build that exact same addition solely because your neighbor just built a massive new garage and suddenly your house feels small and embarrassing to you.
Yes.
The external action, hiring contractors, pouring concrete, building the room, it's identical. But the internal driver is completely different.
A really good analogy. But let's push it even further to really expose the mechanics here.
Okay, push it.
What happens when the addition is actually finished? In your first scenario, where it was built for connection and joy, the completion of the room is just the beginning of its utility.
Yeah, you host dinners, you enjoy the space. The intrinsic reward continues.
Exactly. But in the second scenario, what happens when it's done?
Oh, I see. You probably stand in it for 5 minutes, feel a brief rush of superiority, and then immediately look out the window to see if the neighbor is eyeing your new addition.
Exactly. Because you outsourced the joy to their validation. You didn't build a room for yourself. You built a monument to your own insecurity.
Wow. A monument to insecurity, that's bleak.
And this gets to the biological cost of extrinsic motivation. Ambition, fueled by gratitude, curiosity, or a desire to contribute that is highly sustainable. It engages the parts of our brain associated with play and mastery.
Right, the good stuff.
But ambition fueled by greed, comparison, or a fundamental feeling of lack, that operates entirely on stress hormones. It relies on cortisol and adrenaline. It is literally a fight or flight response applied to your career or your lifestyle.
And you can't run your body on adrenaline forever. That's what leads directly to the exhausted heart and just complete total burnout.
Yes. The allostatic load, which is the wear and tear on the body from chronic stress, it just becomes too much. If you are building the house addition just to beat your neighbor, even when it's finished, your nervous system can't relax.
It's just waiting for the next threat.
It's immediately scanning for the next threat to your status.
Yeah.
That's why people who accumulate massive wealth or prestige out of a sense of lack often end up deeply miserable and physically sick. The fuel source matters just as much as the destination.
Okay, so if we are actively trying to change our fuel source, if we want to protect our peace, focus on what we have, and run our lives on intrinsic joy rather than cortisol, what does that actually look like on a random, boring Tuesday?
That's the real question, isn't it?
It is. Where does this elusive peace actually reside in daily life? Because I think we often conceptualize peace as something you find on a 2-week silent retreat in Bali,
All right.
not something you find sitting in traffic on the way to work.
This is where we have to fundamentally reevaluate the beauty of the ordinary. The philosophy of knowing enough argues that the greatest, most sustainable peace is actually found in simple, ordinary moments, rather than in massive, expensive achievements.
The ordinary moments.
Yes, we spend our entire lives holding our breath, waiting for these giant milestones, the wedding, the promotion, the retirement, to finally give us permission to be happy, while completely ignoring the texture of our daily existence.
The texture of our daily existence. I like that phrasing. The examples often given in our sources are almost shockingly mundane.
They are.
Like drinking a cup of coffee in the morning, sharing a regular weeknight dinner with your family, reading a book, listening to a record, taking a peaceful walk without your phone.
And why do those things matter biologically? Why aren't they just filler?
I don't know.
Because those quiet moments are what actually regulate our nervous systems. When you are fully engaged in a simple walk or a quiet cup of coffee, you are activating your parasympathetic nervous system. That's the rest and digest state.
Opposed to the fight or flight.
Exactly. You are actively shifting out of the hypervigilant status tracking mode that society constantly forces upon you.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me. We devalue these moments so much. Look at that list. Coffee, a walk, reading. Every single thing on there is incredibly accessible.
Yeah.
None of them require a promotion. None of them require $1 million in the bank or a blue check mark next to your name. So why do we treat them like they're just the boring waiting rooms between the important events of our lives?
This raises an important question, and I think we devalue them precisely because they are accessible.
Really?
Yes. We have been heavily marketed to by an economy that desperately needs us to believe that happiness is a luxury good.
Oh, that makes sense. If it's free, it must not be that good.
Exactly. We are conditioned to believe that if something is free or easy, it can't possibly be as valuable as something that costs a fortune and requires a decade of sacrifice.
Right.
We want the grand narrative. We want the cinematic montage of our lives.
Right, and a quiet cup of coffee doesn't make for a good movie montage.
It doesn't.
It doesn't look impressive on Instagram. You can't monetize a quiet walk around your neighborhood.
Exactly. The commodification of happiness has convinced us that joy must be purchased. But the reality of human psychology is that a moment of genuine connection with a friend or a morning of quiet reflection is actually the pinnacle of the human experience.
The pinnacle,
Yeah.
not the filler.
Not the filler. It is a moment where you are fully present, entirely unbothered by the toxic cycle of comparison. The person who truly knows enough has mastered the art of extracting maximum joy from these ordinary moments.
They don't need the external validation.
Right. They don't need the meal to be at a Michelin-starred restaurant with a 6-month waiting list just to find it deeply satisfying.
Right.
They just need the food, the company, and the presence of mind to actually taste it.
There is a phrase from the sources that I keep coming back to. I'm thinking about this, and it's so simple. A day without trouble is a gift.
It's beautiful.
That reframing is so powerful. How often do we get to the end of a totally normal, uneventful day and feel this weird sense of guilt or frustration because we didn't achieve something monumental? We feel like we wasted the day.
In reality, a day without trouble is a massive statistical and biological victory.
Exactly. Think about the infinite number of things that could go wrong on any given Tuesday.
Oh, a million things.
The car didn't break down, nobody got a terrifying phone call from a doctor, the plumbing didn't explode, we had food in the fridge. That is a massive triumph. It is a profound gift, and we just toss it aside because it wasn't shiny enough or because we didn't increase our net worth that day.
Reframing a boring day as a miraculous lack of catastrophe is a very high-level cognitive skill. But, it isn't a skill you were born with, which transitions us perfectly into the mechanics of how we actually build this mindset.
Right. Let's get into the practical application. Because we know the theory now. We know what simple happiness looks like. We understand the evolutionary trap, the comparison poison, all of it. But how does someone actively cultivate this in their own life when their brain has spent the last 20 or 30 years being wired to do the exact opposite?
It takes work.
Right. I can't just snap my fingers and say, okay, I'm content now.
No, you definitely can't, because what we are talking about is neuroplasticity. Gratitude and contentment are not just fleeting feelings that happen to you. They are directed cognitive practices.
Directed practices.
Yes. The brain is malleable, and it literally wires itself based on what you repeatedly do. As the famous neuroscience axiom goes, neurons that fire together, wire together.
Oh, Hebb's law.
Exactly. Right now, most people have highly developed neural pathways for anxiety, comparison, and dissatisfaction. Those highways are perfectly paved, and they have 8 lanes.
Traffic is flowing freely on the anxiety highway.
Very freely. The pathway for gratitude, on the other hand, is like a tiny, overgrown dirt trail through the woods. You have to actively pave it. And you do that through specific daily habits.
Okay, the most common habit everyone always hears about is the gratitude journal. Writing down 3 things you are grateful for every single day.
Right.
And I have to be completely honest here, I have always deeply struggled with this one.
Really? Why is that?
It just feels so forced. You sit there with a blank journal at 10 p.m., you're exhausted, and you think, I'm grateful for my pen, I'm grateful for air. It feels trivial, and the friction to actually start doing it is incredibly high.
Well, the friction is high because you are actively fighting your brain's natural negativity bias. Your brain is designed to remember the one negative comment your boss made, not the 10 positive things that happened that day.
That's true. The bad stuff sticks.
Writing down 3 things isn't really about the things themselves. It's about going to the gym for your perspective.
The gym analogy makes a lot of sense to me.
How so?
Because the first few times you lift weights, it feels awkward, you feel weak, your form is terrible, you don't see any immediate results in the mirror. But you are causing micro tears in the muscle that will eventually rebuild stronger.
Yes. That's a perfect analogy. When you force yourself to scan your day for 3 positive things, no matter how incredibly small they are, you are engaging your reticular activating system, the RAS.
The RAS, what is that?
It's a network of neurons in the brainstem that basically acts as a filter for all the sensory data coming at you.
Wait, is that the red car syndrome, where the moment you buy a red car, suddenly you see red cars everywhere on the highway?
That is exactly it.
Yeah.
Your brain can't possibly process the millions of bits of data coming at you every second. So the RAS filters out what it deems unimportant and highlights what it thinks you care about.
Based on what you focus on.
Yes. If you spend all day worrying about threats to your status, your RAS will dutifully highlight every slight, every failure, and every successful peer.
It's doing its job.
Right. But when you establish a daily practice of writing down 3 things you are grateful for, you are manually programming your RAS to look for positive inputs. You are telling your brain, these things are important, find more of them.
Wow.
And over time, you start seeing the red cars of joy, peace, and abundance everywhere without even trying.
You are systematically rewiring your default mode network. That is incredible. And I imagine it extends beyond just writing things down. It's also about how we process our own ambitions, right? Like celebrating small wins.
Absolutely.
Because if you only allow yourself to celebrate when you cross the final finish line of a massive 5-year goal, you are going to spend 99.9% of your life uncelebrated and miserable.
Which goes right back to the dopamine mechanisms we discussed earlier. If you withhold celebration until the very end, that reward prediction error will hit you incredibly hard.
Because the payoff can never match a 5-year buildup.
Exactly. But if you celebrate the small milestones, if you appreciate progress instead of demanding perfection, you are providing your brain with steady, sustainable drips of dopamine. You are neutralizing the endless desire treadmill.
Progress over perfection.
Yes. If you demand perfection, you will invariably find lack. But if you train your brain to appreciate progress, you will always find growth.
It really is a form of cognitive self-defense, isn't it? We are living in a world that desperately wants us to be anxious, dissatisfied, and constantly buying things to soothe that anxiety.
It relies on it.
Practicing gratitude and cultivating contentment isn't some soft woo-woo concept. It is a highly practical, rigorously scientific toolkit for emotional healing and taking back control of your own psychology.
It is the ultimate reclamation of your peace. And doing it requires immense discipline. But the payoff is a life actually lived rather than a life spent waiting to begin.
We have covered a massive amount of ground today. Let's bring all of these threads together. What we've discovered is that the person who knows enough isn't the person who has given up. They haven't surrendered. Not at all.
They may not have the most toys, the highest title, or the most perfectly curated online existence, but they possess the one singular thing that everyone else is spending their entire lives desperately running on a treadmill to find.
Yeah.
Internal peace.
Internal peace. Yes.
True contentment is the profound ability to appreciate what you have right now, to maintain your dreams and work hard for your future, but to absolutely refuse to let the biological and algorithmic craving for more hold your daily joy hostage.
It is a radical shift in how to inhabit the world. It's about recognizing that the ordinary moments aren't the spaces between the important things. They are the important things.
I love that.
And I want to leave anyone listening with a specific sentiment from the sources that perfectly encapsulates everything we've discussed today.
Let's hear it.
May you always have dreams that continue to inspire you to grow. May you build a daily practice of gratitude that keeps you fiercely grounded. And may you cultivate the wisdom to recognize that very often what you already have in this exact moment is more than enough. Dreams to inspire, gratitude to ground. I love that. But before we wrap up completely, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to chew on as you go about your week.
Oh, I'm ready.
We've talked extensively about how wanting less and escaping the comparison trap brings profound personal peace. But zoom out for a second and think about the macro implications of this.
The big picture.
Yeah. If our entire modern economy, the massive advertising industry, and the entire architecture of social media fundamentally relies on us feeling perpetually dissatisfied, if the system requires us to always want more just to keep the gears turning, what happens if you simply decide that you finally have enough?
Wow.
By finding personal contentment, are you actually committing the ultimate act of rebellion in the modern world? Something to think about.
Yeah.
Until next time.